I thought I was going to be crushed alive, buried in living earth that had been waiting decades for someone stupid enough to wander into its stomach. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The first thing you need to understand is that I wasn't some reckless idiot looking for trouble. I was a seasoned hiker, 32 years old, with over a decade of trail experience under my belt. I'd conquered the Appalachian Trail, survived solo treks through Patagonia, and navigated backcountry routes that would make most people turn back at the trailhead. So when I found the unmarked entrance to Merrow Valley tucked away in the Cascade foothills, I didn't hesitate. I should have. It was late September, that perfect window when summer's heat is finally broken, but winter's bite hasn't yet arrived. The air smelled clean, almost sterile, like it had been scrubbed of every impurity. I'd been driving along Highway 26 when I spotted what looked like an old logging road branching off into dense forest. There were no signs, no trail markers, nothing to indicate where it led. Just tire tracks so faded they could have been decades old, disappearing into a tunnel of Douglas firs. I pulled my Jeep onto the shoulder, grabbed my pack, and started walking. The forest was quieter than it should have been. No birdsong, no rustling of squirrels in the underbrush, just the soft crunch of my boots on the dirt path. After about 40 minutes, the trees began to thin, and I emerged into a valley that took my breath away. It was maybe 2 miles wide, a long basin stretching between two ridgelines that rose like the walls of a cathedral. The grass was an impossible shade of green, almost luminescent in the afternoon light. Wildflowers dotted the meadow in clusters of purple and yellow, swaying gently despite the complete absence of wind. In the distance, I could see a creek cutting through the center of the valley, its water catching the sun like scattered diamonds. It was beautiful, too beautiful. I set up camp near the creek, in a flat area sheltered by a stand of aspens. The ground was soft beneath my tent, almost spongy, and I remember thinking how comfortable it would be to sleep on. I spent the rest of the afternoon exploring, walking the perimeter of the valley, taking photographs that would never capture what my eyes were seeing. The sun was warm on my face, and I felt that deep sense of peace that only comes from being truly alone in nature. That's when I noticed the first strange thing. I'd knelt down to refill my water bottle in the creek, and as I placed my hand on a smooth river stone to steady myself, I felt warmth. Not the sun-warmed heat you'd expect from a rock that had been sitting in daylight, but a deeper warmth, like touching skin. I pulled my hand back and stared at the stone. It was granite, streaked with quartz, perfectly ordinary. I touched it again, and there it was, that unsettling warmth pulsing against my palm like a heartbeat. I told myself it was just geothermal activity, some hot spring deep underground warming the rocks from below. It made sense, or at least enough sense that I could push the unease aside. I filled my bottle and walked back to camp, trying not to think about the way the stone had felt alive under my fingers. As dust settled over the valley, I built a small fire and cooked dinner. Freeze-dried beef stroganoff, not gourmet, but hot and filling. I ate slowly, watching the light drain from the sky and the stars begin to emerge. They were brilliant here, untouched by light pollution, scattered across the darkness like thrown salt. I felt lucky, privileged even, to have found this place. I was rinsing my dish in the creek when I heard it. A sound like a long, slow exhalation, so deep and vast that I felt it in my chest before I actually heard it. The water in the creek trembled, creating tiny ripples that moved upstream against the current. I froze, my hands still in the icy water, listening. The sound faded, replaced by the normal nighttime chorus of crickets and frogs. But something had changed. The air felt heavier, pressing against my skin like a physical weight. I returned to my fire and sat close to it, suddenly wanting the light and warmth. I pulled out my phone to check the time, saw that I had no signal, which was expected this deep in the wilderness. It was only 8:30, but I was exhausted in a way that didn't match the easy hiking I'd done. My eyelids felt heavy, my limbs sluggish. I crawled into my tent and zipped it shut, cocooning myself in synthetic fabric and downfilling. Sleep came fast, too fast, dragging me under like a riptide, and that's when the dream started. I dreamed I was standing in the center of the valley, naked and alone, my feet sinking slowly into the earth. The ground was soft, yielding, pulling me down with a gentle but inexorable pressure. I tried to move, to pull myself free, but every struggle only made me sink faster. The grass grew up around me, wrapping around my ankles, my calves, my thighs, holding me in place. And then I heard it again, that vast exhalation, and I understood with dream logic clarity that the valley was breathing me in. I woke with a gasp, my heart hammering against my ribs. The tent was dark, the fire outside long dead. I fumbled for my headlamp and clicked it on, the beam cutting through the darkness. Everything looked normal. My gear neatly stowed, my sleeping bag twisted around my legs from thrashing. I checked my watch, 3:17 in the morning. I forced myself to take slow, deep breaths to calm the panic clawing at my throat. It was just a dream, I told myself. Just your brain processing the strangeness of a new place. Go back to sleep. But I couldn't. I lay there in the dark, listening to the night sounds of the valley, and slowly I became aware of something that made my skin crawl. The ground beneath my tent was moving, not violently, not like an earthquake, but rising and falling in a slow, steady rhythm, like breathing. I pressed my hand flat against the tent floor, feeling the motion through the fabric and foam pad. Up, down, each cycle taking maybe 15 seconds, slow and deliberate. I could hear my own breathing, rapid and shallow, and I tried to convince myself I was imagining it, that it was just the natural settling of soft ground under the weight of my tent. But I knew better. I didn't sleep again that night. I lay there feeling the earth breathe beneath me, counting the cycles. 143 times the ground rose and fell before the sky began to lighten with dawn. I emerged from my tent hollow-eyed and shaky, my nerves scraped raw by hours of terror. The valley looked exactly the same in the morning light. Peaceful, beautiful, utterly normal. The grass was still impossibly green, the flowers still swaying in that absent breeze. I broke camp quickly, my hands fumbling with tent poles and stuffed sacks, desperate to get moving, to get out. I didn't bother with breakfast, just shoved everything into my pack and started walking back the way I'd come. That's when I realized I was in trouble. The trail I'd followed into the valley was gone, not overgrown or faded, but completely absent, as if it had never existed. Where there should have been a clear path through the aspens, there was only unbroken forest, the trees standing so close together that I couldn't fit between them. I circled the area, searching for any gap, any opening, but the forest was a solid wall of wood and bark. I tried the other direction, heading toward the far end of the valley where the ridgelines converged. Maybe there was another way out, a game trail or old fire road I'd missed. I walked for an hour, my pace quickening with every step, and then I saw it. The cliffs, the two ridgelines that formed the valley walls were closing together, the gap between them narrowing to maybe 50 feet. I could see the rock faces clearly now. Vertical walls of stone streaked with lichen and moss, and they were moving. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, but moving, grinding together like the jaws of some impossibly vast creature. I stood there, frozen, watching the cliffs inch closer to each other. The sound they made was terrible, a deep, grinding groan that I felt in my bones. Rocks broke loose and tumbled down, crashing into the valley floor with impacts that shook the ground. Dust rose in choking clouds, turning the air gray, and I understood. I understood what this place was, what it had been doing. The valley was alive, a living thing that breathed and moved and fed, and I was standing in its stomach. I ran. I don't know where I thought I was going, but panic had burned away any capacity for rational thought. I just ran, my pack bouncing against my back, my boots pounding the soft earth. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs turned to water, and then I collapsed in the grass, gasping and sobbing. The ground beneath me rose gently, a long, slow breath, and I felt it with my whole body. I rolled onto my back and stared up at the sky, at the clouds drifting across that perfect blue expanse, and I knew I was going to die here. The valley would digest me slowly, patiently, the way it had digested everyone else who'd wandered in. How many others had there been? How many sets of bones were buried beneath this impossible grass, broken down and absorbed into the living earth? I lay there for a long time, maybe hours, feeling the ground breathe beneath me. And as terror gave way to a numb acceptance, I started to notice other things. The trees weren't just standing still, they were leaning, bending slowly toward me like spectators at an execution. The flowers were growing, their stems lengthening, their roots spreading, reaching for me with botanical patience. When I spoke, just to hear my own voice, to prove I was still real and alive, the trees shuddered. I watched their branches tremble and shake, responding to the sound of my words. I said my name, Dan Reeves, and the entire valley seemed to shift, the grass rippling outward from where I lay like I'd thrown a stone into still water. It was listening to me. The valley was listening. I got to my feet, unsteady but determined. If I was going to die here, I wasn't going to make it easy. I would struggle, resist until my last breath. I started walking again, this time toward the narrowing gap between the cliffs. Maybe I could squeeze through before they closed completely. Maybe I could climb over the rubble. Maybe there was still a chance. The ground fought me with every step. It rose up in gentle swells, trying to knock me off balance. The grass wrapped around my ankles, its blade surprisingly strong, trying to hold me in place. I tore through it, ignoring the thin cuts it left on my skin, ignoring the warm wetness that might have been sap or might have been something else. The cliffs were close now, towering above me, blotting out the sun. The gap between them was maybe 30 feet wide and shrinking. I could hear the grinding clearly now, a constant low roar punctuated by the crack of breaking stone. Boulders the size of cars were wedged in the narrowing space, crushed to gravel by the inexorable pressure. I looked at that gap and knew I couldn't make it. Even if I tried, even if I ran full speed and threw myself through, the cliffs would catch me, crush me, grind me to paste between millions of tons of rock. But what choice did I have? Stay and be slowly digested by living earth, or die quickly, pulped by stone. I chose the stone. I dropped my pack, shedding the weight, and ran. The ground bucked beneath my feet, trying to throw me down, but I kept my balance through sheer desperate will. The grass grabbed at my legs, cutting deep now, drawing blood that soaked into the hungry earth. The trees groaned, their roots breaking through the surface to trip me, but I jumped over them, my eyes fixed on that narrowing gap. I was maybe 10 feet from the cliffs when the ground opened up beneath me. Not a hole, not a pit, but the earth itself splitting apart like a mouth, like lips parting to reveal the throat beneath. I didn't even have time to scream before I fell, tumbling into darkness, into a space that shouldn't exist, that couldn't exist. I hit the bottom hard, the impact driving the air from my lungs. I lay there, stunned and gasping in absolute darkness. My headlamp was still on my head somehow, and I fumbled for the switch with shaking fingers. The beam clicked on, cutting through the black, and I wished immediately that I'd left it off. I was in a chamber, a vast hollow space carved into the living rock beneath the valley. The walls were lined with roots thick as my thigh, pulsing with that same warm life I'd felt in the river stone. They covered every surface, writhing slowly, reaching toward me with blind hunger, and scattered among the roots were bones, hundreds of bones, thousands, skulls staring with empty sockets, rib cages crushed and scattered, femurs gnawed clean by time and earth. Some were old, crumbling to dust at the slightest touch of air. Others were newer, still wrapped in scraps of clothing, fabric slowly being consumed by creeping moss. I scrambled backward, pressing against the chamber wall, and felt the roots move against my back, wrapping around my shoulders, my arms, my waist. They were warm, almost hot, and they pulsed with a rhythm I'd felt before. The valley's breathing. I was inside it now, inside its body, and it was going to keep me here forever. I screamed until my throat was raw, until I tasted blood, and the roots tightened with every sound, drawing me deeper into their embrace. They were gentle, almost tender, the way you might hold something precious and fragile. But they were inexorable, pulling me back against the wall, spreading across my chest, my neck, my face. I fought them, tearing at the roots with my fingers, but they were too strong, too many. For every one I pulled away, 3 more took its place. They covered my mouth, muffling my screams, and I felt them probing, trying to push inside to fill me up with their warmth and life. I don't know how long I fought. Time lost meaning in that darkness, measured only in the steady pulse of the roots and the fading strength of my struggles. Eventually, I stopped fighting, not because I wanted to, but because I had nothing left. My muscles were exhausted, my mind fractured by terror, my will broken. The roots held me, cradled me, and I felt the valley's breathing slow, deepen, as if it were settling down to digest its meal. I closed my eyes and waited for the end, but it didn't come. Hours passed, or maybe days. I drifted in and out of consciousness, my mind playing tricks, showing me impossible things. I saw the valley from above, saw it contract and expand like a lung. I saw the bones around me shift and move, arranging themselves into patterns that hurt to look at. I saw faces in the roots screaming silently, other victims who've been absorbed completely, their consciousness trapped in the living wood. And then I felt something change. The roots loosened just slightly, and I drew in a full breath for the first time in hours. The chamber grew brighter, not from any light source I could see, but as if the darkness itself was thinning, becoming translucent. I looked up and saw a crack in the ceiling, a narrow fissure through which I could see the night sky and stars. The valley was opening. It was letting me go. I didn't question it, didn't waste time wondering why. I just moved, pulling myself free of the roots with strength I shouldn't have had, climbing the chamber wall, using the thick vines as handholds. The fissure was narrow, barely wide enough for my shoulders, and I had to squeeze through, scraping skin off my arms and back. But I made it, emerging into the cool night air like being born. I was in the center of the valley, far from the cliffs. The gap between the ridge lines was wide again, maybe a quarter mile, as if they'd never moved at all. The grass was still green, the flowers still swaying, everything peaceful and perfect. My tent was where I'd left it, my fire pit still filled with cold ash. I ran to my bag, still lying where I'd dropped it near the cliffs. I grabbed it and ran toward the tree line, toward where the trail had been, and it was there again, clear and obvious, cutting through the aspens like it had never disappeared. I didn't look back, didn't slow down, just ran until I burst out onto the old logging road, until I saw my Jeep sitting exactly where I'd left it. I threw my pack in the back and drove. I drove through the night, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel, my eyes seeing roots and bones in every shadow. I drove until the sun came up, until the Cascade foothills were far behind me, until I hit Interstate 5 in the blessed anonymity of highway traffic. I never reported what happened. Who would believe me? A valley that breathes, that eats people. It sounds insane. I sound insane. But I have the scars to prove it wasn't a hallucination. The cuts from the grass, healed now into thin white lines around my ankles. The scrapes on my arms and back from squeezing through that fissure. And my hands still bear the marks where the roots held me. Circular indentations in my wrists like I'd been bound with rope. Sometimes late at night I can still feel the ground breathing beneath me. I'll be lying in bed in my apartment on the 3rd floor of a concrete building, and I swear I can feel the earth rise and fall in that slow, steady rhythm. I tell myself it's just my imagination, just trauma manifesting as phantom sensation. But then I think about the valley, about those bones scattered in the darkness, and I wonder how many of them thought they'd escaped, how many made it out, only to discover that once the valley has tasted you, once it's held you in its roots and felt your terror, it never really lets you go. I don't hike anymore. I can't. The thought of setting foot on soil, of touching grass or trees, fills me with a nauseating dread that makes my hands shake and my vision blur. I stay in cities now, surrounded by concrete and steel, trying to forget, but I can't forget, because every breath I take reminds me of that other breathing, vast and patient and endlessly hungry. And I know deep in my bones where knowledge lives beyond reason, that Merrow Valley is still out there, still breathing, still waiting, still feeding. And sometimes when the wind is just right, when the night is quiet enough, I swear I can hear it calling me back, a vast exhalation that sounds almost like my name, carried on air that smells of earth and grass and old, old bones. It wants me to return, to finish what we started, to let it complete its meal. I won't go back. I can't. But the valley is patient, and it has all the time in the world. Sooner or later, everyone returns to the earth. It's just the natural way of things. I just hope that when my time comes, when my body is finally laid to rest, it's somewhere far, far away from the Cascade foothills. Somewhere the ground doesn't breathe, somewhere the earth stays still and dead and harmless. Because if they bury me anywhere near Merrow Valley, I know exactly what will happen. The roots will find me. They'll burrow through the soil, through the coffin wood, and they'll wrap around my bones with that same gentle, inexorable pressure, and I'll become part of it, part of the valley's living body. My consciousness trapped in the roots with all the others, screaming silently for eternity. That's the real horror, isn't it? Not death, but the wrong kind of life. Forever aware, forever trapped, forever digested, but never consumed. The valley doesn't kill you. It transforms you, makes you part of its all. And that's so much worse than any ending. I carry that knowledge with me every day. It weighs on me like a physical thing, heavier than any pack I've ever shouldered. And I wonder if the valley knew, when it let me go, that this would be my fate, to be free but not free, alive but not living, forever haunted by the memory of warm roots and patient earth. Maybe that was the point. Maybe some meals are meant to be savored slowly, over years instead of days. Maybe I'm still being digested, just from a distance, my life force drawn out drop by drop until there's nothing left but empty bones and the echo of screams. I don't know. I'll probably never know. But I do know this: if you ever find an unmarked trail leading to a valley that's too beautiful, too green, too perfect, turn around. Don't go in. Don't set up camp. Don't touch the stones. Don't speak to the trees. Just leave as fast as you can and never look back. Because some places in this world are hungry, and once they've tasted you, they'll never stop feeding.